Hey, sweeties. Things are going great here. This is Jasper from my living room in West Oakland. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I had a really great reaction from everybody about my last video about transsexual identity leading when it becomes victim identity. Um, I stumbled upon a discussion on the internet. It doesn't matter where it is, but I've seen it on so many different sites. And basically, it's a trans-victimization narrative, where it's what Wendy Brown would maybe call the racialization of an identity. It's this process by which we're creating a trans ghetto, which in which trans becomes a kind of a race in this in the sense, just like Jews were made into a race. Trans becomes a race with a biological basis, and then you can count on the people who've embraced this reverse discourse to fight for that. So this is, I'm going to read to you what people said. I'm not going to say who it is. It's anonymized. It doesn't matter who it is, but it could be anywhere. So, person N says that they overheard this at a pansexual play party, a BDSM play party. But there is a relationship between being trans and a transvestite. End of quote. Said by random dude. At which point I became very uncomfortable and walked away instead of asking for explanation. This is a really interesting question, is what is the relationship between cross-dressing and trans? I noticed reading through these blogs, is anybody, when these trans people are othering men, straight men, they when use this word dude, right? Which gives them an unproblematic male gender. It makes them into the other. So when you see lesbian or trans discourse use the word D-U-D-E, it's the other, my victimizer. And we don't really know anything about this guy. He always has to be random too, meaning you don't know them. But it's really a put down. And the other thing is becoming very uncomfortable and walking away. I was there when I was doing the transsexual identity. It's just this feeling of your world falling apart. But I think it has to do with some of the basic preconceptions of racializing transgender to make it into a race. That then anybody who questions the fundamentals becomes, you give everyone the power to fuck your world up. Basically, if they use words you don't like. So I just wanted to answer this. What do I think the relationship between trans and transvestite? Transsexual, I'm not even going to go into the word trans, between transsexual and crossdresser. One thing I would say is, there's people in this forum saying, oh, the next person says, oh, the transvestite is about sexual kicks, and the other is about gender. I think that's bullshit. Transvestite is totally about gender. It's, transvestite, crossdresser, that's a form of genderqueer. It's a form of gender variance. Absolutely. No need to marginalize the crossdressers. And stigmatize them as cissexuals and random dudes. They're questioning gender too. I think that a lot of people go through an identity trajectory, starting out as a cross-gender and then starting to identify with transsexuality, certainly on the men's side. It's just, I'm not a Freudian, but it's a way to give a space to something that you can't talk about. You have no place to talk about gender, but there are these sexual communities where it can be recognized. It's a form of Hegel's recognition. People can recognize you. Personally, I found it a little weird because I found that role playing and cross sexually tented role playing, it always stays role playing. There's no room for it actually being real. But definitely it's a form of genderqueer, and then we can say, what's the relationship between trans and genderqueer? Are you still offended by somebody saying there's a relationship between the two? If you're not offended by that, you should not be offended by someone saying there's a relationship between cross-dressing and trans. So, it's part of this bullshit to say one's completely about sex and the other's about gender. Now, there was actually a really good study from a symbolic interactionist that I found, that she studied the lifetime trajectory of a lot of transsexual women, so that's men who transition, and saw that a lot of them, maybe the majority, started out cross-dressing, and then, went into saying, oh no, it's sex, I have the wrong body. And some of them came back and said, it's neither this nor that. I don't believe in male or female. But whatever.